Alright guys, so here's the review of the Omnion OM16 Phantom. So don't worry if you've not heard of these before, because I hadn't actually heard of them either. They're actually a sub-brand of Proxima, which I've checked out previously, although it was a while ago. If you haven't seen that review, I'll leave a link to it up here if you want to check it out. But as for this one, I've been trying it out for a while. It actually featured in one of my AliExpress videos briefly, but I hadn't had enough time to do the full review. But obviously tested it out a bit longer now, and I'm coming at you with the full review. So it's an interesting piece. It's got some bits that you're either going to love or hate, I think, and you're probably going to know fairly quickly which side of the camp you fall on. But either way, it's going to be one you're going to want to see, because as I say, it's fairly interesting. It may even remind you of something else as well, but we'll talk about that as we get into the full review. But enough waffling, let's jump right in and let's show you what it's all about. So here's the actual watch. I won't show you the packaging because it's the standard kind of packaging you get with the likes of Steel Dive, etc. So good functional packaging, but nothing to write home about. Whereas this dial is definitely something a little bit different. So you've got that translucent dial, and when it comes to the case finishing, it's also a little interesting as well. So instead of having brushed with a polished chamfer, we've got polished with a brushed chamfer, which is not something I've seen before. Definitely something a little bit different. Although, as you can see, it does gather fingerprints quite a bit because it's mainly polished. But the finishing is nicely done. Unsigned crown. Before we talk about it a bit more though, let's talk about the dimensions on this. So we've got a diameter of 42mm, thickness of 12.8, a lug width of 20, and then the all-important lug to lug is coming in at 49.5. So it's just below that important 50mm for most people, if you've got an average size wrist, as I have. But this watch is pretty much all about the dial, so let's get a zoom in and talk about that. So as I said, you've got that translucent dial, so you can see the date wheel below, and also the movement as well. And it is really nice. If you're not keen on this blue colour, they actually do another one as well. They do, I think it's a brown. So you've got a couple of options. You can see we've got applied indices there, with a high polish surround, and then the hands have also got a high polish too. Got a red tip on that second hand, matching the red text for the Phantom, which is printed just above that automatic at the bottom, and then the branding at the top. This could be an issue for some people. I have to admit, when I first read that, I wasn't entirely sure what it said, but it is actually meant to be Omnion. So they've done a bit of a weird stylized thing there with the M, which is a little bit odd, is a little bit awkward to read. So I know some people aren't going to like that, and that's understandable. Perhaps they need to come up with a logo or something instead, or perhaps just give it the Proxima branding instead maybe. Let me know, what would you prefer? When it comes to that date wheel at the 3 o'clock, we haven't got a surround on that, it's just a printed one, and again, we've got that minute track around the outside, where we have actually got some little red accents again on the 12, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, whereas the rest are just white. So again, just tying it all together with a few little pops of different colour. So when it comes to the strap, it's a canvas strap, it's got nice hardware, and then the stitching is nicely done. This is pretty cool though, this case back. So I'll get a zoom in and show you this properly. It's got a really interesting design there. Got that polar bear on an iceberg, and then at the bottom we've got that penguin. Definitely something a bit different, a bit unique. And then when it comes to the specs around the outside, we've got automatic movement, stainless steel, limited edition, so I'm not entirely sure how many they're going to be making of this. Sapphire crystal, and it is a screw down case back as well. When it comes to the rest of the strap, again, nicely done. Not had any issues with it fraying around these holes. It is a pretty robust strap. It's like double thickness there, as you can see. It's not the most flexible or comfortable, so it does have a bit of a break-in period, which I've tend to find with a lot of nylon style straps. They're not the comfiest of straps. So let's check out what the Lume's like on this. So you can see we've got a bit there already, but let's charge it up, give it a proper chance. And there we go. So we've got BGW9 on this, and it's nicely applied, no patchiness, even across the hands and the indices. If I had one slight issue, it'd probably be the hands on these. There's not a lot of area there for Lume. Perhaps they could do with being either a little bit thicker or a little bit longer maybe, so they can get a little bit more Lume in. Because there is a little bit of an issue there maybe. Small surface area. Which does look a little bit odd sometimes. But in terms of longevity, it's pretty good. Obviously it's not going to be competing with a diver, but it isn't that kind of watch. So now let's check out whether we have actually got sapphire crystal on here, using the trusty Downland Selector 2. And yeah, we have got sapphire. Let's quickly flick it over and check the back. And yeah, we have actually got sapphire on the back as well, which is pretty unusual for AliExpress watches on the whole, to be honest, or Chinese watches generally. So before I show you what this is like on wrist, let's talk about the movement. So you've actually got a couple of options with the movements on this. You can either get it with a PT5000, which is what I've got here, or you can get it with an SW200. But obviously the price will jump up considerably if you go for the SW200, with it being a Swiss movement. And in my experience, the PT5000 performs just as well. Although that being said, I have got a limited experience with the SW200. I've only got 1 or 2 watches with that, but I've got quite a few PT5000s now, some of which I've had for like over a year or more. I think I've even had one for about 2 years, still going strong. So we've got screw down crown. So if we pop it out once, you can change the date, and you obviously see that translucent dial, so you can see the date wheel going round. Pop it out again, second hand stops, we've got hacking, and then obviously you can change the time. Pop it back in, second hand re-engages. Then you've got hand winding, works well, no grittiness or anything. So all it's left to do now, show you what it's like on wrist, and then we'll wrap this up. So this is what it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. So it's definitely a pretty unique watch, although as I said in the intro, it does remind me quite a bit of the Christopher Ward C60 Sapphire I reviewed a while back. If you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link to that one up here if you want to check it out. Let me know what you think. Is it similar to that? Is it like a budget version of that almost? Obviously it's not a one-to-one homage, but I think they've definitely been inspired by that. When it comes to this particular one, if I had any little issues, I've got a couple, yeah. I would have liked a bit more curvature to these lugs, so it can form to wrist a bit better. At the moment it sits pretty flat. And again, with it being a 42mm, it's quite large, although the lug to lug is just about under that 50mm. It does still just about work on my 7-inch wrist, I think. But any smaller, it'd probably be too big. If you're a bigger guy, obviously it's not an issue. When it comes to the strap, as I say, canvas strap isn't the softest or the most comfortable, but again, that's pretty much par for the course when it comes to these kind of straps. Nice hardware again, as I say. But it's all about that dial with this watch. So again, it's either going to be one of those you either love or hate. Again, if I was being a little bit nitpicky, I probably would have preferred the case to be brushed with polished chamfers, as opposed to this unusual polished with brush chamfers. Not something I've seen before. I can see they're trying to do something a little bit different, but I'm not entirely sure if it works as an overall design. I think it distracts a bit from that dial, and obviously it's going to scratch a bit easier and it's more prone to fingerprints. But let me know, what do you think? Is it an interesting one? Would you be tempted to pick one up, or is this just not your kind of thing at all? If this isn't your kind of thing, that Proxima I was mentioning earlier is here, if you want to check out the review for that one. I'll leave a link to that up here. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.